Ethan Walker reached across the table, took the phone out of his best friend's hand, and turned it face down on the tablecloth. "You're recording her," he said. "Say it out loud. Say why." Nobody answered, because every single person at that table already knew. They had invited a woman to dinner so they could film a grieving single father walking out on her. There was money on it. There was a punchline waiting. What they didn't count on was what Ethan said next, or that the woman they'd picked as the joke would become the only reason his daughter ever spoke again. Stay with me to the very end of this one. And do me a favor, drop the city you're watching from in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Subscribe if you believe decency still counts for something. Ethan Walker sat in his truck in the parking lot for 11 minutes before he went inside. He knew it was 11 because he watched the clock on the dash change, and because he had promised his daughter he'd call her before he went in, and he was stalling on that too. He dialed anyway. Walker residence. His mother-in-law always answered like it was 1974. "Grace, it's me. Is she still up?" "She's up. She's been up. She's got that book open on her lap and she hasn't turned a page in 20 minutes, so I'd say she's waiting on you." Ethan closed his eyes. "Put her on." There was the shuffle of the phone changing hands, and then breathing. Just breathing. That was how Lily answered the phone now. "Hey, Bug," he said. "Nothing." "I'm at the restaurant. Ryan set up some kind of dinner thing. I'll be home before 10, maybe sooner." "Nothing." "You know what I'm gonna do when I get home? I'm gonna wake you up and I'm gonna tell you it's an emergency, and the emergency is going to be ice cream." There was the smallest sound on the other end. Not a laugh, but close enough that Ethan gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. "Okay," he said. "Love you. Put Grandma back on." Grace came back. "She's smiling. I want you to know that, because she won't tell you." 3 years, Grace. I know how long it's been. I buried my daughter same day you buried your wife." Her voice didn't crack, but it went quieter. "Ethan, go inside. Have a dinner. Talk to a grown adult about something that isn't a spelling test. It's Ryan. It's not going to be a dinner. It's going to be an ambush. Then be polite to whatever poor woman he's dragged into it and come home." He should have listened to the last part. He would think about that later, how she'd said it almost like a warning, almost like she knew. Oh, Ryan Mitchell had called on Tuesday. Ethan remembered the whole conversation because Ryan had been too casual, and Ryan was never casual about anything. Saturday, Bellini's, 7 o'clock. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. Guys' wives' food. You've turned into a hermit man. Madison keeps asking if you're still alive." "Tell Madison I'm alive." "Tell her yourself. Saturday." "Ryan." "What? Is this a setup?" There was a pause on the line that lasted about half a second too long. "Is this a no? Come on. Ethan, have I ever done that to you?" "Yes, 4 times." "Okay, twice, and one of those doesn't count because you actually liked her." "I didn't like her." "You had coffee with her." "I had coffee because she drove 40 minutes and I wasn't going to make her drive back without a coffee." Ryan had laughed at that. "That's your whole problem, you know that. You're too decent to be miserable properly." Saturday, 7. Ethan had said yes because it was easier than arguing, and because some small, tired part of him thought maybe it would be fine. He walked into Bellini's at 7:14 and knew inside of 4 seconds. He knew because there were 9 people at a table set for 10. He knew because the empty chair was not on the end where they'd normally stick him. It was in the middle, against the wall, beside a woman he had never seen before in his life. And he knew because when the door opened, every single person at that table stopped talking at exactly the same time. 9 faces turned. 9 faces performed surprise. "Ethan!" Madison said, too loud, too bright. "Oh my gosh, we were just saying you weren't coming." "I said I was coming." "Well, you said a lot of things, honey." Ryan stood up halfway out of his chair with a grin already loaded. "There he is. Look at this guy, shaved and everything." Ethan didn't move from where he stood. He looked at the empty chair. Then he looked at the woman beside it, She was somewhere around 30. Dark hair pinned back. A green dress that somebody had clearly chosen with care. She had a water glass in front of her and nothing else. No wine, no bread plate, nothing. And her hands were folded in her lap in a way Ethan recognized instantly, because it was the way Lily sat at school assemblies when she wanted to be smaller than she was. She was a big woman. That was the first thing the table had noticed about her. Ethan could feel that in the room, the way you can feel a draft. But that wasn't the first thing he noticed. What he noticed was that she wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the door behind him, measuring the distance to it. Calculating. She had already decided how she was going to leave. Ethan had spent 3 years learning what a person looks like when they're bracing for the worst part of the night. He'd seen it in the mirror. Madison patted the empty chair. "Sit, sit. We saved you a spot." And then Ethan saw the phone. Ryan had it low-angled up against a water pitcher screen, dimmed but active. Pointed at the empty chair. Pointed at her. Ethan crossed to the table. He didn't sit. He reached across, took the phone out of Ryan's hand before Ryan could close his fingers on it, and set it face down on the tablecloth. The whole table went still. "You're recording her," Ethan said. "Say it out loud. Say why." Ryan's grin held for a second and then developed a crack in it. "Relax, I was checking the score." "The score?" "Bulls game." "Bulls don't play in June, Ryan." Somebody at the far end coughed. Madison's mouth opened and shut. Ryan leaned back, and his voice dropped into that easy, joking register he used when he wanted everybody to remember he was the fun one. "Man, sit down. You're making this weird." "I'm making it weird." "Yeah, you are. Right now. You are." Ethan stood there another moment. And in that moment, he did the math on the whole evening, the middle chair, the empty seat kept warm, the 9 faces turning at the door, the woman with no wine and no bread and her hands in her lap and her eyes on the exit. They hadn't invited him to meet somebody. They'd invited him to react. He could have walked out. He thought about it. 15 steps to the door, 30 minutes home. Lily asleep, the whole thing behind him. But if he walked out, she'd still be sitting there. And they'd still have their ending. So instead, Ethan Walker pulled out the chair beside her, sat down, unfolded his napkin, and said, "I'm Ethan, and I'm glad I'm not the only person here who got tricked into coming tonight." The woman turned her head and looked at him properly for the first time. And she laughed. It came out of her before she could stop it. Surprised, unguarded, a real one. And she put a hand over her mouth like she'd dropped something in church. "Oh," she said. "Oh, I'm sorry, that's not funny." "It's a little funny." "It's not funny at all." "No," Ethan agreed. "It's not." She looked at him a second longer. "Sophia," she said. "Sophia Bennett." "Sophia." He put out his hand and she shook it, and her grip was firmer than he expected. "How long have you been sitting here?" 40 minutes. 40. They told me 7. I got here at 6:40 because I always get places early, and then everyone else came at 7:30. She said it flatly, like reading off a receipt. "So, 40 minutes. Ethan turned his head and looked down the table at Ryan. Ryan raised his wine glass a half inch. "Everybody, this is Ethan. Ethan, everybody. We've met," Ethan said. "Some of us for 28 years. The food came. The table talked around them for a while, the way people do when a plan has gone off the rails and nobody wants to be the one to say so. And Ethan did the only thing he could think to do, which was ask her questions like a human being. "What do you do, Sophia?" "I'm a counselor. Middle schoolers mostly. Some high school." "That's a rough age." "It's the worst age. It's the age where everybody figures out that being different is expensive." She turned her water glass a quarter turn. "I run groups for kids who are getting it bad. Bullying stuff. Confidence stuff." "How long?" 9 years. "Are you good at it?" Sophia blinked. "What?" "I asked if you're good at it. People always ask how long. Nobody asks if you're good." She looked at him for a long moment. Yes, she said. I'm very good at it. I believe you. Why? Because you've been sitting at this table for 40 minutes, and you're the only person here who hasn't said anything unkind. Down at the other end, Madison's voice rose above the rest. So, Sophia, you never told us. How do you and Ryan know each other? Sophia set her fork down. We don't, she said. Ryan's cousin works at my clinic. She said there was a dinner. She said it would be nice for me to meet people. Oh, Madison said. Oh, that's so sweet. Is it? The word landed on the table like a dropped plate. Madison laughed a beat too late. I'm sorry. I asked if it was sweet. Sophia's voice was perfectly pleasant. I'm asking honestly. I'd like to know. Ethan watched Madison decide in real time that she was going to escalate. He'd known Madison for 6 years. She had a face she made right before she said something cruel, and she made it now, chin tucked, eyes wide, a little smile of pure innocence. Sweetie, you're being so intense. It's a dinner. Madison turned. Ethan, help me out. Tell her she's being intense. She's not being intense. Ethan. She asked a question. You could answer it. Ryan cut in too fast. Okay, hey, Ethan, tell everybody about the deck. He built a deck, guys, by himself. I didn't build it by myself. He built it by himself. My father-in-law helped. See, that's what I love about this guy. Ryan was talking to the table now, big and loose. 3 years, man. 3 years, and he still says father-in-law. The table got quiet. Ethan set his knife down on the edge of his plate, very carefully. He's still my father-in-law, Ryan. I know, I'm just saying. Ryan spread his hands. At some point, brother. At some point. At some point what? At some point you've got to rejoin the world. That's all any of us are saying. That's why we... He stopped. Everybody heard where the sentence had been headed. Ethan felt Sophia go still beside him. Not surprised. Confirmed. That was somehow worse. That's why you what? Ethan said. Nothing. Finish it. It's nothing, man. Eat your steak. Ryan found him by the restrooms 11 minutes later, which was exactly as long as Ethan figured it would take. Hey. Ryan put a hand on the wall. Are we good? How much? How much what? How much is the bet, Ryan? Ryan's jaw worked. He tried to laugh. It didn't take. You're being paranoid. 28 years, since Mrs. Halloran's class. I have never once been paranoid about you, and I have been right about you every single time. Ethan didn't raise his voice. That was the thing that got Ryan. Ethan never raised his voice. How much? Ryan looked at the ceiling, then the floor. 300, he said. Ethan didn't say anything. It wasn't okay, look. It wasn't about her. It was about you. Ryan's hands came up. You've been dead for 3 years, man. Dead. You don't come out. You don't call anybody. You sit in that house with that little girl who doesn't talk. Don't. And I said to Madison, I said I bet you anything he leaves. I bet you he takes one look, and he makes an excuse, and he's gone in 10 minutes. And she said, no way, Ethan's too polite. He'd sit there for 2 hours. And I said... Ryan stopped. You said, Ethan repeated. I said not with her. The hallway was very quiet. Say that again. Ethan. Say it again, Ryan, out loud. Because I want to make sure I heard it, and I want to make sure you heard it too. Ryan's face had gone red. I said not with her. Okay. That's what I said. I said no man's gonna sit there for 2 hours with a woman who looks like that, and I put $300 on it, and it was stupid, and it was a joke. Who was the joke on? On you. No. Ethan shook his head slowly. You made a bet about whether I'd humiliate a stranger. You didn't bet on me. You bet on her. You put a price on her, and you invited her to sit at the table while you did it. Ryan opened his mouth. She got here at 6:40, Ethan said. You told her 7. Everybody else came at 7:30. You know what that means? That means somebody sent a second text. Somebody told everybody else a different time, so she'd be sitting alone when the audience arrived. Ryan looked away. Was that Madison's idea or yours? Does it matter? It matters to me. It was Madison's. And you let it happen? Yeah. Ryan's voice cracked just slightly. Yeah, I let it happen. Ethan stood there and felt something old come apart. 28 years. This was the man who had carried a casket for him. This was the man who had shown up at his house at 2 a.m. with a bag of groceries because he'd heard Ethan hadn't eaten in 2 days. This was the man who taught Lily how to whistle. And this was also the man who had put $300 on a woman's dignity and sat down to watch. Both things were true. That was the part Ethan couldn't get past. I'm going back to that table, Ethan said, and I'm going to sit down next to her, and I'm going to stay until she decides she wants to leave. Come on, don't do this to prove a point. I'm not proving a point. Then what are you doing? Ethan looked at him. I'm having dinner, he said. When he came back, Sophia had her purse on her lap. He sat down. She didn't move the purse. You heard, he said. I didn't hear. I didn't have to. She kept her eyes on the tablecloth. You want to know the part that's embarrassing? I counted the chairs. What? When I got here, there were 10 place settings and 9 names on the reservation. I counted and I did the math, and I knew what the 10th chair was for. Her thumb moved back and forth over the clasp of her purse. And I sat down anyway. Why? Because I'm 31 years old, and I have been the 10th chair my entire life. And every single time, some part of me thinks, maybe not this time. She laughed, but it came out wrong. That's the humiliating part. Not them, me, hoping. Ethan didn't say anything for a moment. Then, my wife died 3 years ago in March. Sophia's head came up. Aneurysm. She was 34. She was standing in the kitchen, and then she wasn't. He turned his water glass slowly the way she had. My daughter was 5. She saw it happen. She hasn't said more than about 10 words a day since. Ethan, I'm not telling you that so you feel bad for me. I'm telling you because everybody at this table thinks they know what my life is. They think I'm a widower who needs to be pushed back into the world. They've got a whole story about me. He looked at her. And you've been sitting here 40 minutes, and you're the only one who hasn't tried to tell me what my life is. Sophia's eyes were bright. They have a story about me too, she said. I know. Do you want to hear what it is? Only if you want to tell me. She let out a breath. The story is that I'm grateful. That's the whole thing. That's the entire story. Wherever I go, whatever room I'm in, everybody has already decided that I should be grateful for whatever I get, and if I'm not, then I'm difficult. She shook her head. So I smile. I'm pleasant. I'm the funny one. And they all go home thinking, see, she's got such a great personality, and not one of them ever wonders what it costs. What does it cost? Nobody had ever asked her that. He could see it land. Everything, she said quietly. It costs everything. Madison's voice came sailing down the table. Ethan, settle something for us. She had her wine glass up. She was smiling. Be honest, just honestly. Is Sophia really your type? The whole table stopped. Ethan felt Sophia beside him make herself absolutely still, the stillness of somebody who has been here before and knows there's no version of the next 10 seconds where it doesn't hurt. 9 people waited. Ryan said, Madison, what I'm asking a normal question. Madison, don't. It is a question, Ryan. Ethan set down his napkin. He turned in his chair so he was facing Madison directly. And when he spoke slowly in a completely level voice. And every person at that table heard every word. My type, he said, is somebody who makes my daughter smile. My daughter hasn't smiled at a stranger in 3 years. My type is somebody who's kind when there's nothing in it for them. My type is somebody who can sit alone at a table for 40 minutes knowing exactly what everybody in the room is thinking, and still be gracious to every one of them. He paused. So yes, Madison, she's my type. She's more my type than anybody at this table has been in a very long time, and I want you to understand something that's not a compliment I'm paying her. Madison's smile had gone rigid. It's not. No, Ethan said. It's a complaint I'm making about us. Silence. Total, absolute silence, the kind where you can hear the ice shifting in the glasses. Madison's chin came up. She looked around the table for backup and found 9 people suddenly very interested in their plates. Wow, she said. Okay. Wow. I was making conversation. You were making a joke. There's a difference. The difference is who pays for it. Ryan, Madison said. Ryan, are you going to say something? And Ryan Mitchell. $300 in 28 years and halfway through a steak he had completely lost interest in, put down his fork and said, Yeah, I am. He looked at Sophia. I'm sorry, he said. There's no version of this where that's enough. But I'm sorry. Madison's chair scraped. Are you serious right now? Sit down, Madison. Are you serious? I said sit down. Sophia hadn't moved through any of it. She had her hands folded in her lap again, but they were different now, not tucked, not small, just folded. When she finally spoke, she spoke only to Ethan quietly under the noise. You didn't have to do that. I know. No, I mean it. I need you to understand something, and I need you to understand it right now tonight before anything else. She turned to face him. I don't need a defender. I've had defenders, men who stand up for me one time and then spend the rest of their lives waiting for me to be grateful about it. That's just a different flavor of the same thing. Ethan nodded slowly. Okay. Okay. He met her eyes. Then I didn't defend you. I answered a question I was asked honestly at a table full of people who deserved to hear the answer. That's all that happened. Sophia stared at him, and then something in her face changed, not softened, opened. Say that again, she said. That's all that happened. No, the part before. I answered a question honestly. She sat back in her chair and let out a long, shaky breath, and Ethan realized with a strange lurch that she was fighting not to cry in front of 9 people who had come to watch her do exactly that. Do you want to leave? He asked. We can go, right now. I'll walk you out. Sophia looked around that table, at Madison staring furiously at her wine, at Ryan not looking up, at 7 other people who had all sat there and said nothing, who would go home tonight and tell it as a funny story, and who had all at some point in the last 2 hours glanced at her and then away. She'd spent her whole life leaving rooms like this. No, she said. No. She picked up her fork. Her hand was not entirely steady. I've been sitting here since 6:40. I'm going to finish my dinner. Ethan felt something turn over in his chest that he hadn't felt in 3 years and couldn't have named if you'd paid him. Then I'm staying too, he said. You don't have to. I know I don't. He picked up his own fork. That's kind of the whole point. It was 8:19 when Sophia Bennett took her first bite of food that night, and the whole table watched her do it. Ethan noticed that. He noticed that 9 adults, grown people with mortgages and car payments, and kids in Little League could not stop themselves from watching a woman eat. He put his own fork down. Hey, Ryan, he said. How's the addition coming? Ryan blinked. The what? The addition. On the back of your house. You started it in April. Yeah, it's coming. Framed yet? Not yet. Permits on Ethan. I'm making conversation, Ethan said. That's what we do at dinner. We make conversation. Somebody at the far end of the table laughed nervously, and just like that, the room started moving again, because that was all it took. One person willing to speak into the silence. Sophia leaned toward him a couple of inches. That was on purpose. What was? You gave them something else to look at. I asked about a deck. You asked about an addition, she said. You asked about a deck earlier. You've been doing it all night." Ethan didn't answer that. At 8:31, the waiter came by and asked if anyone wanted dessert, and Madison Cole said brightly, without a pause, "Oh, I'm sure Sophia does." The table went cold so fast it was almost audible. Ryan's head came up. "Madison." "What, I'm being friendly?" "You're not being friendly. I am literally being friendly. She's a guest. I'm asking if the guest wants dessert." Madison turned that wide, innocent face toward Sophia. "Do you want dessert, honey? Get whatever you want. It's on us." And Sophia Bennett, who had been counting chairs since 6:40, set down her fork, folded her napkin, and looked at Madison for a long moment. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "What did you think was going to happen tonight?" Madison's smile flickered. "I don't know what you mean." "I think you do. I'd just like to hear you say it out loud because I've had this dinner about 11 times in my life and nobody has ever once said it out loud." Sophia's voice was calm, not sharp. That was the thing that made it unbearable. What was supposed to happen? Nothing was supposed to happen. Then why did you text everybody a different time? 9 people stopped breathing. Madison laughed. It came out thin. "I don't know what you're talking about. I got here at 6:40 because I was told 7. Everybody else arrived at 7:30. That's not a scheduling error. That's a plan." Sophia tilted her head. "I'm not angry. I want you to know that. I'm asking because I actually want to understand it. What was the part you were looking forward to? Okay, you know what this is so uncomfortable." "It is," Sophia agreed. "It has been uncomfortable since 6:40. Ethan watched Madison's hand tighten around the stem of her wine glass. "I think," Madison said, "that you have a chip on your shoulder." "I might." "I think you came in here looking to be offended." "I came in here hoping I was wrong," Sophia said. "There's a difference. And I'd like to be clear that I was hoping right up until about 7:32. Somewhere behind them a plate clattered in the kitchen, and it was the loudest sound in the world. Then Madison said the thing. She said it the way people say things when they've lost the room, and they know it, and they'd rather burn it down than lose it quietly. She said, "Well, at least somebody won $300 tonight." Ryan closed his eyes. Nobody moved. Sophia turned her head slowly and looked at Ethan, and her expression didn't change at all, which was somehow the worst part. 300? She said. "Sophia." "No, I want the number. I've never had a number before." Her voice stayed level. $300. On what exactly? On whether he'd stay. On whether I'd leave, Ethan said. Ryan bet I'd leave inside 10 minutes. And you? She looked at Madison. What was your side? Madison's chin came up. That he'd be too polite to go. So you bet on his manners. I bet on his character. No, Sophia said. You bet on my humiliation, and you dressed it up as a compliment to him. Those aren't the same thing, and I think somewhere in there you know it. It was 8:39. Madison stood up so fast her chair went over backward, and the entire restaurant turned to look. You know what I'm done. I came out for a nice dinner and I've been attacked all night by a woman I have known for 90 minutes. Sit down, Ryan said. Don't you dare tell me to sit down. Madison, sit down. After what she just said to me, Madison's voice had gone up into that register that carries. In front of everybody. Do you hear how she's talking to me? Ryan stood up too. And for a second, Ethan saw the kid he'd known at 9 years old, the one who used to go quiet right before he did something he couldn't take back. You sent the texts, Ryan said. Oh my God. You sent the texts, Madison. I said 7 for everybody. You changed it. You made her sit here alone for 50 minutes so there'd be a better shot. You made the bet. Yeah, Ryan said. I did. And I've been sitting here for an hour trying to figure out how I'm going to live with that, and you're standing here worried about your evening. Madison grabbed her purse. She looked around the table for one single ally. She didn't find one. "You are all pathetic," she said, and she walked out, and the door closed behind her with a soft chime that was somehow more humiliating than a slam. Nobody said anything for about 8 seconds. Then a woman down at the end, somebody's wife named Dana, said quietly, "Sophia, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I should have said something an hour ago. Thank you. I didn't know about the money." "I believe you," Sophia said. "But you knew about the chair." Dana didn't answer. At 8:52, the check came, and Ryan reached for it, and Sophia put 2 fingers on the leather folder before he could pick it up. "I've got mine." "Sophia, come on." "I've got mine." She was already taking out her wallet. "You understand why. I'd really like to pay for your dinner." "I know you would," she said. "That's exactly why you're not going to." She counted out cash. Bills, not a card. Ethan noticed she had it ready folded the exact amount plus tip, and he understood immediately that she had prepared that before she left her apartment hours ago, because she'd known she might need to leave fast, and she hadn't wanted to owe anybody anything on her way out the door. That detail sat in his chest like a stone. The parking lot was cold for June. It was 9:04. Sophia stopped beside a gray sedan that had a car seat in the back, which Ethan noticed and filed away and did not ask about. "Well," she said, "that was a night." "Yeah. You should probably know that this is number 12. "Number 12 what?" "Dinners." She fished for her keys. "The first one was 19 years old, sorority thing. They called it a pig roast. That's the actual name, that's what it's actually called, and I didn't find out until I was already inside." Ethan felt his jaw tighten. Number 4 was a wedding. A guy asked me to dance and his friends filmed it and put it on a message board. She said this in the same voice she might use to describe a commute. Number 7, a guy took me out 3 times before I found out I was a dare. He was nice, too. That's what I couldn't get past. He was really nice about it. Sophia, I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you so you understand what you walked into, because you seem like a person who takes things personally, and this one is not personal to you. She finally found the keys. You were the mechanism, that's all. They needed a decent man to fail so they could all feel normal about themselves. Any decent man would have done. That's not true. It's completely true. It's not, Ethan said, because they picked me. Out of everybody they know, they picked the widower with the kid who doesn't talk because they thought I was the most broken person at the table and the most likely to be cruel about it. Sophia went still. They didn't need a decent man, he said. They needed a desperate one, and they were sure they had one. She looked at him across the roof of her car for a long moment. That's a horrible thing to realize about your friends, she said. Yeah. Are you okay? Ethan laughed one short breath. Nobody's asked me that in about 2 years. Everybody asks how Lily's doing. How's Lily doing? Not good, he said. She's not doing good, Sophia. And then, because the parking lot was empty, and it was 9:11 at night, and he had nothing left to hold on to, Ethan Walker told a stranger the whole thing. He told her that Lily had been 5 and standing in the kitchen doorway. He told her that the last words his daughter had said in a normal voice, the last full sentence was, "Mommy, can I have the purple cup?" He told her about the 4 months of speech therapists and the 2 child psychologists and the neurologist who ran every test there was and said the words selective mutism like they explained something. He told her that his daughter was 8 now and that she spoke maybe 10 words a day, all of them to him. None of them to a teacher, none of them to another child, and that the school had started using the word placement, and that he had a meeting on the 14th that he'd been throwing up about for a week. Sophia listened to all of it without saying a single word. When he finished, she said, "Does she write?" Ethan blinked. "What? Does she write things down? Notes, lists. She draws, constantly. She's got about 40 notebooks. Does she draw people?" "No," Ethan said slowly. "No, that's the thing. She draws rooms, houses, empty ones, no people in them ever. The therapist said it was a bad sign. The therapist is wrong. What? She's building somewhere safe, Sophia said. It's not a bad sign, it's a waiting room. She's making a place and she's leaving room in it, and when she's ready she'll start putting people in. I've seen it maybe 30 times. She shook her head. Whoever told you that was a bad sign should not be working with children. Ethan stood in that parking lot and could not speak. I'm sorry, Sophia said. That was not my place. I don't know your daughter. I shouldn't be diagnosing a child in a parking lot after the worst dinner of my life. No, Ethan said. No, keep going. Ethan, please keep going. But she shook her head, and she opened her car door, and she said, It's late. You should get home to her. Can I call you? Sophia paused with her hand on the door. You don't want to do that, she said. I'd like to decide that. No, listen to me. She turned around. Right now, you feel terrible about what happened in there, and you feel protective, and you feel like you owe me something. And that is a beautiful, decent, temporary feeling. In about 4 days it wears off, and you're a man with a job, and a grieving kid, and no time, and you'll feel guilty every time you don't call, and then one day you won't call at all. I've had that too. That's number 3 and number 9. Sophia, I'm tired, she said, and her voice broke for the first time all night just slightly. I'm so tired of being the lesson people learn after they hurt me. She got in the car. Ethan stood there in the parking lot at 9:26 and watched her taillights go, and he thought about the number 300, and he thought about a woman folding exact change into her wallet before leaving her apartment, and he thought about a waiting room with no people in it. He got home at 9:58. Grace was asleep in the recliner with the TV muted. Lily was not in her bed. Lily was sitting on the top step of the staircase in her pajamas, with her chin on her knees, and she'd been there long enough that the hall light had turned her hair orange. Hey, Bug. She looked up at him. You're supposed to be asleep. She held up one finger. 1 minute. 1 more minute. She nodded. Ethan sat down on the step below her, which put their faces level, which was a thing they'd figured out together about a year ago without ever discussing it. Dinner was bad, he said. Lily watched him. It was really bad, actually. My friend Ryan did something mean to a lady, and I got mad. He rubbed his hands together. I don't think Ryan's going to be coming around for a while. She reached over and put her hand flat on his shoulder. Just left it there. Yeah, Ethan said. Yeah, I know. Then Lily got up, went to her room and came back with a notebook. She opened it to a fresh page and wrote in careful enormous letters and turned it around. It said, Was the lady okay? Ethan looked at that for a long time. She was okay, he said. She was better than okay. She was the toughest person in the whole restaurant. Lily nodded satisfied and went to bed. He sat on the stairs for another 40 minutes. The next morning was Sunday, and Sunday was pancakes. And at 7:40 in the morning, Ethan's phone started buzzing and did not stop for 3 hours. The first one was Dana. It said, Have you seen this? The second one was from a guy named Marcus he hadn't spoken to since the funeral. It said, Brother. The third one was Ryan, and it said, I didn't do it. I swear to God I didn't do it. Madison did it. Ethan set his coffee down and opened the link. It was 51 seconds of shaky vertical video shot from low from beside a water pitcher. The audio was clear as a bell. It was Madison's voice saying, Be honest, just honestly, is Sophia really your type? And then it was him. My type is somebody who makes my daughter smile. My daughter hasn't smiled at a stranger in 3 years. Ethan's stomach dropped through the floor, because Ryan hadn't been recording. Ryan had put the phone down. But Madison had picked hers up at some point after under the table, and she had filmed the entire exchange, and she had posted it at 11:40 last night with a caption that said, When your friend puts everyone in their place, and by 7:40 in the morning, it had 400,000 views. By noon, it had 2 million. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the video had been reposted by an account with 9 million followers, Under the words, "This man," and Ethan Walker's face was on the phone of every single person he had ever met. And Sophia Bennett's face was on there too. Her face. Sitting there. Her hands in her lap. The moment she goes still. Ethan called her at 4:15. It went to voicemail. He called at 5. Voicemail. He called at 6:30, and it rang twice, and she picked up and said before he could say anything at all, "Did you know?" "No, Sophia, I swear to you on my daughter, I did not know." "Because that's the thing I need to be sure about." Her voice was not calm anymore. "I need to know if you sat there and gave a speech knowing there was a camera on me." "There was no camera when I said it. Ryan's phone was face down on the table. I put it there myself." Somebody's wasn't. Madison's. He heard her breathe out. 2 million people, she said. "I know. Do you know what my morning was like?" Her voice cracked. "I have a group Tuesday nights. 13 kids. 11 of them have sent me that video. 11. Because they think it's a nice thing. They think it's a happy thing. A 13-year-old girl who I have spent 2 years helping to walk into a cafeteria sent me a video of a stranger publicly discussing whether I'm attractive enough to date, and she sent it with hearts. Ethan, she sent it with little heart emojis because she thinks it's beautiful." Ethan put his hand over his eyes. "And every comment," Sophia said. "Every single comment. Do you want to hear them? I've read 4,000 of them. Some of them are about you. They love you. You're a hero. Thousands of women are telling you that you restored their faith in men." "I don't care about that. And the rest are about me. And they're split right down the middle. Half of them are calling me disgusting, and the other half are saying I'm so brave and so lucky, and God bless that man for seeing past it." She was crying now, and she was furious about crying. "Do you understand that both halves are saying the exact same thing? Both halves agree on what I am. They're just disagreeing about how nice it is to say it." "Sophia, you made me a lesson," she said. 12 dinners, and I finally meet somebody decent, and he makes me the biggest lesson of my whole life in front of 2 million people. I didn't post it. I know you didn't." Her voice dropped exhausted. "That's what's killing me. You didn't do anything wrong. You did the single kindest thing anybody's ever done for me in a room like that. And it still cost me everything, and there's nobody to be angry at, and I have to go to work tomorrow." The line was quiet for a moment. "What do you need?" Ethan said. "Tell me what you need, and I'll do it." "I need it to not exist." "I can't do that." "I know." "Tell me the next thing." "There isn't a next thing, Ethan. There's just a Monday." She laughed ragged. "I have to walk into a building at 8 in the morning full of teenagers who have all seen it." "Then don't go in." "They're my kids," she said. "Of course I'm going in." And that, Ethan thought later, was the exact moment. Not the restaurant, not the speech. That. He said, "Sophia, listen to me. Whatever this is, whatever we are or aren't, I want you to know that I'm not going to disappear in 4 days. I know you don't believe that. You have 12 very good reasons not to believe it. I'm just telling you now so that later on you can look back and know. I said it early." There was a long silence. "Good night, Ethan," she said. Monday was the worst day of Sophia Bennett's professional life. Her supervisor called her in at 8:15 and used the word optics. The clinic's front desk had taken 19 phone calls. 2 parents had asked in careful language whether Miss Bennett was going to be a distraction. By Wednesday, it had settled into something worse than a crisis. It had settled into a fact. She was the woman from the video. And on Thursday morning at 10:10, a 14-year-old girl named Bree, who had not made eye contact with an adult in 7 months, walked into Sophia's office, closed the door, and said, "Did that really happen to you?" Sophia said yes. "That's what happens to me." "I know. But you're grown." "I know." Bree stood there in the doorway with her backpack still on both shoulders and said, "So it doesn't stop." And Sophia Bennett, who had spent 9 years telling children that it gets better, sat in her chair and understood that the single most important thing she would ever do in her career was about to come out of her mouth, and that she had one chance to get it right. "No," she said. It doesn't stop. Bree's face crumpled. It doesn't stop, Sophia said, and I'm still here, and I'm still doing this job, and I still had the best conversation of my adult life in a parking lot on Saturday night. Both things. Bree, look at me. Both things are true at the same time, and they are always going to be true at the same time, and anybody who tells you different is selling you something. Bree wiped her face with her sleeve. Was he nice? She asked. The guy, he was. Are you going to see him again? Sophia opened her mouth to say no, and found she couldn't. At 11:50 that same morning, the front desk called back to her office and said there was a man in the waiting room. Tell him I'm with clients. He says he'll wait. Tell him I'm booked until 3. Ma'am? The receptionist's voice went odd. He's got a little girl with him. Sophia stood up so fast her chair rolled into the wall. She came around the corner into the waiting room, and there was Ethan Walker in a work shirt with his name stitched on it, sitting in one of the plastic chairs, and beside him, feet not touching the floor, was a small girl with a notebook on her lap. Hi, Ethan said, and stood up. I know this is a lot. I'm not here about the video, and I'm not here to ask you for anything. Then why are you here? Because I got a call from the school on Tuesday, and they moved my meeting up. It's tomorrow, and they're going to tell me to put my daughter somewhere, and I don't know what to say to them. His voice was very steady, and his hands were not. And you told me in a parking lot that you'd seen this 30 times. And you're the only person in 9 and 3 years who has ever said one single thing to me about my kid that made sense. Sophia looked down at the little girl. Lily Walker was looking right back at her. Hi, Sophia said. You're Lily. My name is Sophia. I'm going to tell you something before anything else happens. Okay, I don't need you to talk to me. Not today, not next week, not ever. You and I can be friends with 0 words. I mean that. I have 4 friends I've never heard the voice of. Lily's eyes went wide. Is that a notebook? Lily nodded. Can I ask you something about it? You can shake your head no. I really mean that. No is a whole answer, and you don't have to explain it. Lily nodded again. Do you draw houses? The waiting room got very quiet. Lily looked up at her father, then back at Sophia, and then slowly she opened the notebook, turned it around, and held it up. It was a kitchen, drawn with the ferocious obsessive detail of a child who had gone over the same lines 100 times. Every cabinet, every tile, the little window over the sink, and standing in the doorway in pencil was one small figure. Ethan made a sound. He put his hand over his mouth and turned away and stood there facing the wall of the waiting room with his shoulders shaking. That's new, he said when he could. Sophia, that's new. There's never been a person in one. Never. Not one time in 3 years. Sophia crouched down in front of the chair, which was not easy for her, and which she did anyway. That's really good, she said quietly. That's a really, really good drawing, Lily. Lily reached out, took a pencil from the little cup on the reception desk, and wrote at the bottom of the page in careful, enormous letters. She turned it around. It said, "Is this the lady from the restaurant?" Sophia read the words twice before she answered, because she wanted to make sure her voice would come out right. "Yes," she said. "I'm the lady from the restaurant." Lily studied her the way children study a thing they have already made up their mind about and are only confirming. Then she took the notebook back, turned to a clean page, and wrote for almost a full minute, while 3 adults stood around her, pretending not to be desperate. She turned it around. "My dad said you were the toughest person in the whole restaurant." Ethan made a noise somewhere between a laugh and something else entirely. "He said that, huh?" Lily nodded once. "Well," Sophia said, "your dad exaggerates." Lily shook her head. Hard. One firm, absolute no, and she underlined the word toughest twice. At 11:58, the receptionist buzzed to say Sophia's next appointment had arrived, and Sophia stood up out of that crouch with her hand on the arm of the chair and said, "Ethan, I have clients until 3. "I know, I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be here at 3. She was already walking backward toward the hallway. Bring the letter from the school. Bring every evaluation you've got, including the ones you think are bad. Especially the ones you think are bad. You'll help. I'll read, Sophia said. That's what I'm agreeing to right now. I'm agreeing to read. She came back out at 3:06 with her hair pulled up and a cardigan she hadn't been wearing before, and Ethan had a folder on the table in the little conference room that was 2 inches thick. She went through it for 22 minutes without speaking. Ethan learned a lot about her in those 22 minutes. She read the way people read when reading is their job. She skipped the summaries and went to the raw notes in the back. She stopped twice and went back 3 pages, and once she pressed her thumb hard against her eyebrow and said under her breath, "You've got to be kidding me." "What?" "Nothing yet, Sophia. I said not yet." She kept reading. Lily sat in the corner with a cup of colored pencils Sophia had put in front of her without comment and drew. At 3:28, Sophia closed the folder. "Okay," she said. "First, I want to say the thing you're going to hate." "Say it." "Nobody in this folder is a villain. Everybody in here is tired, and everybody in here is trying, and the school is not out to get your daughter. That matters, because if you walk in tomorrow morning treating them like the enemy, you will lose in the first 10 minutes, and you will deserve to." Ethan's jaw set. "Fine." "Second thing, this word here." She flipped the folder open and turned it around. "Placement. Do you know what that word means in this district? It means they want to send her somewhere. It means a therapeutic day program 40 minutes from your house with 11 students in it. And I want you to hear me say that it is not a punishment, and it is not a warehouse. And for some kids, it is the best thing that ever happened to them." She let that sit. "And it is completely wrong for Lily." "Why?" "Because she isn't behavioral. Read your own paperwork." Sophia turned the page. 0 incidents. 0. She turns in every assignment. Her reading level is 2 years above grade. She has never once been sent to an office. This is a child who is doing everything correctly and quietly, and the only problem she has is that she won't talk, and the school has run out of ideas, and when a school runs out of ideas, the word placement shows up. That's all this is. It's not a diagnosis, it's an exhaustion. Ethan sat back in the chair. "Say that again tomorrow," he said. "Exactly like that." "I'm not going tomorrow." "Sophia, I'm not a member of your family, and I'm not her provider, and I have known you for 5 days. Her voice stayed even. "If I walk into that room, the very first thing that happens is somebody asks who I am, and the second thing that happens is somebody recognizes my face because 2 million people have seen it. And then that meeting stops being about Lily. So what am I supposed to do?" "You're supposed to go in there and say the 4 sentences I'm going to give you, and then you're supposed to stop talking and let them fill the silence, because people always fill silence, and they always fill it with the truth." Ethan looked at her a long moment. "You've done this before." "I've sat in about 200 of these," Sophia said. "I've just never sat in one from your side of the table." She wrote the 4 sentences on a sheet of clinic letterhead in block capitals so he could read them without his glasses, and she made him say them out loud 4 times, and the 4th time she stopped him halfway through and said, "No. You went hard. You can't go hard. They'll close ranks. Softer. Like you're asking for their help because you are." He said it again. "Better." At 4:10, Lily walked over and set a drawing on the table in front of Sophia and stood there waiting. It was the waiting room. The actual one out front, the plastic chairs, and the fake plant, and the little cup of pencils. There were 2 figures in it now. Sophia looked at it for a while. "Lily," she said, "can I keep this?" Lily thought about it. Then she took the pencil back, wrote something in the corner, and pushed it over. "If you come back." Ethan turned his head away and looked out the window. Ryan Mitchell was sitting on the front steps of Ethan's house when they got home at 5:40, with his truck in the driveway and his elbows on his knees, like a man waiting outside a hospital room. Ethan got Lily inside first. He gave her the tablet and the headphones, and he told Grace to keep her in the kitchen, and then he came back out and closed the door behind him and stood on the porch with his arms folded. "You can't be here." "I know." "Then why are you here?" Ryan didn't get up. "Madison won't take it down." "I figured." "No, you don't get it. She's not just leaving it up." He rubbed his mouth. "She got contacted. Some morning show out of New York, one of those segments, and they want her, and they want you, and she said yes. She already said yes, Ethan. She's flying out Sunday." Ethan stood very still. For what? For the story. Man on a blind date defends a woman. Ryan's voice was flat with disgust, and Ethan couldn't tell how much of it was aimed inward. "They're calling it a moment. She's telling it like she was in on it. Like she set the whole thing up on purpose to teach everybody a lesson. She set it up to humiliate a woman for $300. I know what she did. I was there. I made the bet." Ryan finally looked up. "But nobody's asking me and nobody's asking you, and by Monday morning there's going to be a version of Saturday Night on national television that has Madison Cole as the hero of it." Ethan came down one step. "Does Sophia know?" "No." "Does anybody have her number?" "No, and that's the other thing." Ryan's hands opened. "Some reporter called Dana this morning. Called her at work. Wanted to know the woman's last name." Everything in Ethan's chest went cold. "Did Dana give it?" "No. Dana hung up and then she called me crying." Ryan swallowed. "But somebody will." "Ethan, there were 9 people at that table. Somebody will." Ethan stood on his own front steps and did the arithmetic he'd been avoiding all week, which was that a video with 2 million views is not a video anymore. It's a search. And the only reason Sophia Bennett had made it to Thursday was that nobody had bothered to type her name yet. "Get up," he said. "What?" "Get up and go home and call every single person who was at that table, and you tell them that if her name gets out, that's it. That's the end of you and them and me and all of it. You tell them I said so, and you tell them you said so, and Ryan, you'd better mean it when you say it." Ryan got up. "I'm trying to fix it," he said. "You can't fix it." "I know that." "Then why are you here?" Ryan stood there on the walk with his keys in his hand, and something went out of his face. "Because you're the only person I've ever known who does the right thing without checking who's watching," he said. "And I made money off of betting that you wouldn't. And I'm going to be sick about that for a long time, and I didn't want to be sick about it alone." He left. At 9:15 that night, Ethan texted Sophia one line. He typed and deleted 6 different versions before he settled on it. "Madison is doing a TV segment Sunday. A reporter tried to get your last name today. Nobody gave it. I wanted you to hear it from me first." The 3 dots came up, went away, came up again. Then, "Thank you for telling me." Then 4 minutes later, "Say the 4 sentences." He typed them out. "Good. Say them again in the morning before you go in." He looked at the screen for a long time and then wrote, "Are you okay?" The dots came up and stayed up for almost a minute. "I have to go," she wrote. "I'm sorry. Good luck tomorrow." Friday morning, 8:40, and Ethan Walker sat in a conference room at Meadowfield Elementary across from 4 people. The principal, a woman named Kathleen Doyle, who had been kind at the funeral and had never once been anything but decent to him. The school psychologist, Dr. Prasad. The special education coordinator, a man named Rusk, who had a laptop open and a look on his face like a man with 6 more meetings after this one. And Lily's teacher, Ms. Aguilar, 26 years old, sitting with her hands in her lap, the way Sophia had sat in that restaurant. "Mr. Walker," Kathleen said, "thank you for coming in early. I know you had to move things around." "I did." "We wanted to talk about next year." Rusk started in. He was not unkind. He talked for 9 minutes about tiers and interventions, and the fact that they had, in his words, exhausted the continuum in a general education setting. He used the word placement 4 times. Ethan let him finish. Then he said the 4 sentences. "I want to start by saying thank you. I know how many hours all of you have put into my daughter, and I know most of that was on your own time." He put his hands flat on the table, I'm not here to fight anybody. I'm here because I don't think we're all looking at the same kid. And I'd like to ask what we've actually tried and what we haven't tried yet before we decide she has to go somewhere else." And then he stopped talking. The silence went 8 seconds. 9. And Ms. Aguilar said, "She talks to Nadia." Everybody turned. Rusk said, "I'm sorry. Lily talks to Nadia Okafor." The young teacher's face had gone red, but she kept going. "Not out loud, but she writes to her all day long. They have a notebook they pass back and forth. It's got probably 200 pages in it. They are best friends, and everybody in that room knows it except us, because we've been measuring whether she speaks, and she has been having an entire friendship right in front of us." Kathleen Doyle set down her pen. "Why is that not in the file?" "Because nobody asked me," Ms. Aguilar said. "I'm sorry. That's not fair. It's because I didn't know it counted." Dr. Prasad said quietly, "It counts." Ethan felt his heart going like a hammer, and he kept his hands flat, and he did not say a word, because Sophia had told him that people fill silence with the truth, and he was watching it happen. "There's a communication partner," Prasad said half to herself. "If there's an established partner, we can do stimulus fading. We can do it with the partner as an anchor. Kathleen, if she'll write to appear in the room that is a completely different profile than what's in this report." Rusk said, "That's a 12 to 16-week protocol, and we don't have a person to run it." And that was when the meeting stalled, and Ethan understood exactly what Sophia had meant about exhaustion, because everybody at that table wanted the same thing, and there was simply nobody left to do it. "Who could run it?" Ethan said. "An outside provider," Prasad said. "Somebody trained in selective mutism, which is not a large club. We'd need somebody who'd come in twice a week and coordinate with Ms. Aguilar and the district contracts at a rate that most private clinicians laugh at." Ethan said, "I know somebody." "Who?" "Her name is Sophia Bennett. She's at Ridgeline Behavioral over on Ohio Street. 9 years adolescence mostly, but she's worked with this." Rusk typed the name in. He typed it in, and Ethan watched him type it in, and he had about 1.5 seconds to understand what he had just done before Rusk's eyebrows went up, and his eyes flicked once involuntarily across the table to Ethan's face, and then back to the screen. "Ah," Rusk said. Nobody said anything. "Is there a problem?" Ethan said. "No, no problem." Rusk turned the laptop slightly away. "I'll reach out to the clinic." Kathleen Doyle looked at Rusk for a moment longer than she needed to. Then she said, 60 days. Let's do a 60-day trial with the peer protocol we revisit on October 1st. And Mr. Walker. I want you to understand that if we get to October 1st, with no movement, we are going to be having this conversation again, and I will not be able to hold the line a second time. Understood. Off the record. She capped her pen. I've known you since Lily was in kindergarten. What changed this week? Ethan thought about how to answer that. Somebody told me my daughter isn't broken, he said. She's just in a waiting room. The meeting ended at 9:42. He got to the parking lot and sat in his truck and put both hands on the wheel and shook for about 1.5 minutes, and then he called Sophia, and she picked up on the second ring, and he said, 60 days. They gave us 60 days and a peer protocol, and Prasad's going to write it up. There was a sound on the other end, like all the air going out of somebody. Ethan? She talks to a girl named Nadia. She's been writing to her all year. 200 pages, Sophia. Nobody knew. Somebody knew, Sophia said. The teacher knew. She just didn't know it was allowed to matter. You told me they'd fill the silence. They always do. There's more. He rubbed his eyes. They need an outside provider for the protocol, twice a week. I gave them your name. The pause on the other end was so long he thought the call had dropped. You did what? I gave them your name. The special ed guy typed it in and he... Ethan stopped. Sophia, he typed it in and something came up, and I don't know what he saw, and I want you to tell me right now if I made a mistake. You made a mistake. Then I'll call them back and I'll... Ethan, listen to me. Her voice was strange, fast and low. I need you to not do anything else. I need you to not call anybody and not fix anything and not put my name in front of one more person. Do you understand me? No, I don't. I know you don't. So tell me. I can't. Sophia. And then he heard it. Behind her voice. Clear as anything. A child crying. A small one. 4, maybe 5, that particular register of a very young kid winding up. Ethan heard it, and something in his brain turned over, and he saw a gray sedan in a restaurant parking lot on Saturday night at 9:04 and a car seat in the back of it. Where are you? He said. I have to go. Sophia, where are you right now? She hung up. He found her at 10:55 in the parking lot of a pediatric clinic on Ohio Street, 4 buildings down from Ridgeline, because he had called her office, and a receptionist who had no idea she was doing anything wrong said cheerfully, "Oh, Sophia's out until noon. She's got a thing with Micah." Ethan pulled in 2 rows over. She was standing at the open back door of the gray sedan with a little boy in her arms, and he had his face buried in her neck and his fists in the collar of her cardigan, and he was howling the way children howl after a needle. She had one hand flat on the back of his head. She was rocking side to side without appearing to know she was doing it. She was saying, I know, buddy. It's over. It's all over. You did so good." Ethan got out of his truck and stopped about 15 feet away, and he did not come closer, and he waited. It took 4 minutes. When the boy finally sagged against her and went quiet, Sophia lifted her head and she saw him. She didn't look surprised. She looked like a woman who had been expecting this since Saturday and had simply not known which day it would be. She got the boy into the seat. She buckled him. She gave him a cracker out of a sandwich bag from her purse and shut the door, and then she turned around and stood with her back against the car and folded her arms. "His name is Micah," she said. "He's 4 years and 3 months old. He's my sister's son." Ethan said, "Okay. My sister's name was Nicole. She died 15 months ago." Sophia's voice was absolutely flat, which he was starting to understand was what she sounded like when she was closest to breaking. She had a seizure disorder since she was 19. She had one in her sleep. Micah was in the next room. Her neighbor found them both the next afternoon, and he had gotten himself a box of cereal and eaten it on the floor next to her bed. Ethan put his hand over his mouth. "He was 3, Sophia said. "He didn't speak for 8 weeks. That's how I know what a waiting room looks like, Ethan. That's how I knew about the houses. I didn't read it in a textbook. I sat on a bathroom floor with that child every night for 2 months while he screamed, and I didn't say one word to him because he wasn't ready for words yet. Sophia, I have had kinship guardianship since March of last year." She kept going fast like she had to get it out in one pass, or she'd never get it out at all. "It's temporary. It has been temporary for 15 months. Micah's father is Dwight Voss. He signed away his rights when Micah was 11 months old, and he has not been in the picture since, and I want to be very clear about that. He's not fighting me." "Then who is?" "His mother." Sophia laughed one hard breath with nothing in it. "Charlene Voss. 63 years old, house paid off, 4 bedrooms, married 39 years, been a Sunday school teacher at the same church since 1994. And she filed for permanent guardianship in April, and the hearing is on the 11th of August. Ethan felt the ground move under him. That's 3 weeks. 19 days. Sophia, you've had him for 15 months. He's your sister's kid. No judge on earth. Ethan? She looked at him, and her eyes were terrible. I want you to think for 1 second about what a home study looks like for a single woman with no husband and a 2-bedroom apartment, and $41,000 a year against a married couple in a paid-off house with a church full of character witnesses. That's not how it works. It's exactly how it works, she said. The standard is the best interests of the child, and every single thing that phrase means gets decided by human beings. And human beings look at me and they see one thing. They have always seen one thing, and in a courtroom, they get to write it down in language that sounds like nothing at all. Stability, health, long-term capacity to provide care. Ethan couldn't speak. Their attorney did a supplemental filing. Sophia said. On Tuesday. Tuesday. Tuesday morning, 10:15 in the morning. She looked away, and for the first time her chin went. My attorney got the notice. There's an exhibit attached. It's 51 seconds long. The parking lot went very quiet. No, Ethan said. 2 million views by Sunday afternoon. 4 by Monday. It's on their filing as evidence that the child's current placement exposes him to public spectacle and instability. Her voice cracked in the middle of the sentence and she pushed straight through it. There's a paragraph, Ethan. There's an actual paragraph in a legal document about how the internet talks about my body, and it is being used to prove I'm not a suitable parent. Charlene's lawyer printed out the comments. He attached them. He attached the comments. Ethan turned around and walked 3 steps away and stood with his hands laced on top of his head. That's why I asked you if you knew about the camera, Sophia said behind him. That's why. Not my pride. I have not had pride in 15 months. I traded it in for a car seat and a case number. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. I have a 4-year-old who calls me Sissy because he can't say Sophia, and on the 11th of August, a judge is going to decide whether he keeps calling me that. And the single most viewed piece of evidence in that courtroom is going to be a video of 9 adults deciding whether I'm worth being seen with. Ethan turned back around. Why didn't you tell me? Because you'd have tried to help. Yes, I would have. And that's the whole problem. She stepped away from the car. Ethan, I like you. I have liked you since 8 o'clock on Saturday night, and I have been trying not to for 5 days. But right now, you are the man in that video. You are the reason the video exists in any form that anybody cares about. And 19 days from now, if I walk into that courtroom and their lawyer can put a photograph in front of a judge of me and my nephew, and a man that 6 million people know by his first name, then I am not a guardian anymore. I'm a storyline. So I disappear. Yes. For 19 days. Yes. And then what? Sophia looked at him. I don't know, she said. I don't get to think about then. There's only the 11th. She got in the car. She started it. And then she rolled the window down and said one more thing, and her voice was thin. Tell Lily I'm keeping the drawing. Ethan stood in that parking lot until the sedan turned out onto Ohio Street. He got home at 12:20. Grace took one look at his face and didn't ask. He worked a half shift he didn't remember. He made spaghetti. He read Lily 2 chapters and turned out the light, and at 11:40 at night he was sitting at his kitchen table, with his phone face down in front of him, doing nothing at all. The phone lit up. Unknown number area code from 2 counties over. Ethan looked at it for 3 rings, and then he picked up. Hello. An older woman's voice. Careful, polite, the voice of somebody who had rehearsed. Is this Mr. Ethan Walker? Who's asking? My name is Charlene Voss, she said. I believe you've met my grandson's aunt. Ethan stood up from the kitchen table without meaning to the way a man stands up when a phone call turns into something else. How did you get this number? From a young woman named Madison Cole, Charlene Voss said. She was very forthcoming. I want you to know I didn't ask her for it. She offered. Of course she did. Mr. Walker, it's late, and I'm going to be brief, and then you can hang up on me, and I won't call again. Her voice was steady in a way that told him she had practiced this in a kitchen of her own. I've watched that video 41 times. My husband thinks I've lost my mind. I sat there at my table with my reading glasses on, watching a young man defend a woman he'd known for 1 hour, and I want you to know that I cried the first time I saw it. Ethan didn't say anything. And then somebody in my church group said, isn't that the heavy-set girl who has Nicole Bennett's boy? And I said, no, that can't be. And then I paused it. And it was. Mrs. Voss. Charlene. Mrs. Voss. I don't know what you want from me. I want to ask you 2 questions, and then I'll let you go. A chair creaked somewhere on her end. First one, are you and Sophia Bennett in a relationship? Ethan closed his eyes. Why do you want to know that? Because I'd rather ask you than read about it. That's not an answer. No, she admitted. It isn't. Are you recording this call? No. Would you tell me if you were? There was a pause on the line. "Yes," Charlene said. "I would. I've been a Sunday school teacher for 32 years and I've told a few lies in my life, but not on the phone at midnight to a widower." That landed harder than Ethan wanted it to. "I've known her 8 days," he said. "We've had 2 conversations. That's a no then." "That's a no." "Thank you," she breathed out. Second question, and this is the one I actually called about. "Did she tell you about the 29th? Ethan's whole body went still. "What's on the 29th? The silence on the other end went on for a long time. "Mr. Walker," Charlene said, and something in her voice had changed, gotten older. "I'm going to hang up now. I shouldn't have called. I'm sorry to have bothered you at this hour." "No, you don't get to do that. What is on the 29th? "Good night, Mr. Walker." The line went dead at 11:52. He called Sophia 4 times between midnight and 1 in the morning. It went to voicemail 4 times. He typed out a text and deleted it and typed another and deleted that one too, because every version of it was a man demanding that a woman explain herself at 1 in the morning, and he had promised her 19 days. He sent one line at 12 minutes past 1. "Charlene Voss called me tonight. I told her nothing. She asked what happens on the 29th. I'm not asking. I just want you to know she called." He watched the screen until the light went off by itself. Ryan Mitchell called him at 10 past 9 on Saturday morning and said, "They want you." "Who does?" "The show. The morning show. A producer's been calling my phone since 7. She got my number off Madison. She's been very nice. She keeps calling me Ryan like we're friends." Ryan sounded like he hadn't slept either. "They want you on Sunday, live, with Madison. They're doing it as a reunion." "A reunion?" "That's the word she used. Ryan, there is no reunion. There's a woman who got ambushed at a table and a man who was too slow to stop it." "I know that." "Then tell them no." "I did tell them no. That's why they want you." Ryan's voice cracked with something like a laugh. "She said, and I want to be accurate here, she said the story's running either way. Wouldn't you rather it ran with your side in it?" Ethan sat down on the porch steps. "Give me her number." The producer's name was Dara, and she was as advertised, extremely nice. "Mr. Walker, first of all, everybody here just thinks the world of what you did." "I didn't do anything." That's exactly the kind of humility that people are responding to. "Ma'am, I need you to hear something and I need you to write it down." He kept his voice flat because he knew what happened to his voice when he stopped. The woman in that video is in the middle of a guardianship case for her 4-year-old nephew. His mother died 15 months ago. The other side has already filed that video as an exhibit. If you put this on television, you are not doing a feel-good segment. You are putting a thumb on a scale in a courtroom, and there is a little boy on the other end of it. There was a pause that Ethan wanted very badly to believe was a human being reconsidering. Would she be willing to talk to us about that? Ethan hung up. The segment aired Sunday morning at 12 minutes past 8, and Ethan watched it standing up in his own living room with a dish towel still in his hand because Grace had said, "Sit down, honey," and he had not been able to. Madison Cole wore blue. She was very good on camera. She said the words toxic table culture, and she said the words I've done a lot of reflecting, and she said, with her hand pressed flat on her chest, that the hardest part had been realizing she'd been complicit in something without ever meaning to be. And then the host, warm as a bath, leaned in and said, "Have you spoken to her? Have you spoken to the woman?" And Madison said, "I've reached out to Sophia Bennett. She's a counselor. She works with kids. She's honestly the most incredible person, and I just want her to know that my door is open." Ethan heard the sound come out of his own mouth from a long way off. "What?" Grace said. "What did she do?" "She said her name." He was still holding the towel. "She said her whole name and her job on national television." By 11 o'clock that morning, there were 490 comments under a photograph on a professional networking site that Sophia had not touched since 2019. By 1 in the afternoon, somebody had found the name of the clinic. By 4, 3 separate accounts with more followers than the population of Ethan's town were running the video with her name burned into the corner in white block letters. She did not call him. That was the part he could not get past. She did not call him, and she did not answer, and there was no way for him to know if that was rage or exhaustion, or something that had simply gone quiet and stopped picking up phones. Ryan came by at 6 with a bag of groceries he set on the counter without being asked the way he had 3 years ago, and neither of them mentioned that. "She's not answering me either," Ryan said. "Why would she answer you?" "She wouldn't." Ryan leaned on the counter. "Ethan, I want to say something and I want you to let me finish it." "Say it." "I've been running the math on $300 all week." Ryan looked at his hands. "Because that's the number, right? That's the number that's going to be in my head at my funeral. And I keep trying to make it smaller. I keep going, well, it was Madison's idea and I only said yes, and I didn't send the texts. And every single time I get to the end of it, I'm still a man who made money available on the question of whether a woman deserved to be sat next to." He looked up. "So here's what I've got. Whatever this thing is with the boy, whatever the court thing is, use me, depose me, put me on a stand. I'll say every word of it out loud with my name attached and my job on the line, and I'll say who made the bet and why." Ethan stared at him. "That would end you around here." "Yeah, well." Ryan's mouth twisted. "It should." Monday morning at 9:40, Sophia Bennett was placed on paid administrative leave, effective immediately pending review. Ethan learned that from Bree. She showed up at his front door on Tuesday afternoon, 14 years old, with her mother idling at the curb, and she had a manila envelope in both hands, and she was so nervous she couldn't get the first sentence out. "Are you the guy from the restaurant?" "I'm Ethan." "Okay." She swallowed. "So Miss Bennett got sent home." "I know. Everybody's saying she quit and she didn't quit. They sent her home and they told us she was on leave, and then they gave us this substitute lady who kept saying our feelings were valid." Bree's voice climbed. "And nobody will tell us anything, and my mom said we should mind our business, and then I said, but I know where the guy lives because everybody knows, and so." She held out the envelope. "What is this?" "It's the letters." "Whose letters?" "Everybody's." Bree wiped her nose with the back of her wrist. "There's 22 in there. I did the group chat Sunday night. Some of them are from kids who aren't even in group anymore, like Andre graduated 2 years ago, and he wrote one. And some of the moms wrote them, and Mrs. Ferrante wrote one, and she's the school nurse." Ethan opened the envelope with hands that didn't want to work right. "Bree, I have to ask, do you know what these are for?" "Yeah." She looked at him like he was slow. "You put them in front of the judge." Ethan looked up sharply. "Who told you there was a judge? Nobody told me anything. There's a video where a guy reads out the court filing, and it's got like 600,000 views." Bree's chin started to go, and she got it back under control with visible effort. "Mister, they put our comments in a court paper. Ours. Like Miss Bennett being fat is a fact about whether she's a good person. That's the thing she spent 2 years telling me isn't true, and now there's a judge who's going to read it in a room." Ethan sat down on his own front step. "Come here." "I have to go my mom's." "Bree, sit down for 10 seconds. She sat. "I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to think before you answer. Have any of you sent these to her?" "No." "Why not?" Bree shrugged, and it was the loneliest shrug he had ever seen on a kid. "'Cause she'd say thank you," she said. "And then she'd say she's fine. She always says she's fine. She's been saying she's fine since her sister died, and none of us are even supposed to know about that." Ethan drove out to Charlene Voss's county on Wednesday morning at 7:40, and he did not tell anybody he was going, and he was fully aware while he was doing it that Sophia would have told him not to. The house was exactly what she had described. Paid off, 4 bedrooms, a flag by the door. A hose coiled with real discipline. Charlene answered in an apron. She looked at him for 4 full seconds. "Well," she said, "you'd better come in before Dale sees you standing there." She put coffee in front of him without asking whether he wanted it, which he understood was not hospitality, it was procedure. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "No." "My attorney would come out of his skin." "Mine would too if I had one." Ethan wrapped both hands around the cup. "Mrs. Voss, I'm going to be straight with you because I've got about a 9-minute attention span for anything else these days. I came to ask you to drop it. Charlene laughed one short, dry sound. You drove 90 minutes to ask that. I did. Then you don't know what you're asking. She sat down across from him. Mr. Walker, do you know what I do on Thursdays? No, ma'am. I drive 1 hour and 10 minutes to a 2-bedroom apartment on Whitmore, and I sit on a rug and I play with a 4-year-old boy for 90 minutes while his aunt does laundry in the next room so we don't have to talk to each other. She turned her wedding ring around once. 15 months, every Thursday. Rain, snow, my hip, Dale's surgery, every single Thursday. Ethan hadn't known that. She lets you see him. She's never once said no to me, not one time. Charlene's mouth tightened. You put that in your pocket and carry it around a while, and then you tell me how easy this is for me. Then why are you doing this? Because I have buried one child's mother already. That was your daughter-in-law. That was my Nicole, Charlene said, and her voice went hard and wet at the same time. She lived in my house from when she was 19 years old. She had her first seizure in my kitchen. Not the hospital, not her mother's, mine. I'm the one who held her head. Ethan set the cup down. Mrs. Voss, what's on the 29th? Charlene looked at the table for a long moment. Genetics, she said. Pediatric neurology, the 29th of July, 10 in the morning. It's the follow-up. They drew his blood on the 17th, and the panel comes back, and they sit you down, and they tell you whether that boy has got what his mother had. Ethan felt the floor drop. Nobody told me, he said. She didn't tell me any of it. Course she didn't. Charlene shook her head slowly. She's been carrying that alone since April. My attorney found out because they subpoenaed the medical records, and I want you to know that I did not sleep the night I found out he did that. You could have called it off. And done what instead? Charlene's hands came up and slapped back down on the table. Mr. Walker, if that panel comes back positive, that boy needs somebody in the house at night. Somebody who wakes up. Nicole died in her sleep in a room with a closed door and a 3-year-old on the other side of it, and he ate dry cereal off the floor next to his mother for 18 hours, and there is not one thing anybody can do about that now except make sure it does not happen twice. Her eyes were streaming, and her voice never wavered. Sophia Bennett is one person. She works. She sleeps alone. I have a husband and a paid-off house, and I am home all day, and I am 63 years old, and I know exactly how that sounds, and I don't care how it sounds. That's my argument. That's the whole argument. Ethan sat there and understood with a kind of horror that it was a real one. That's an argument for helping her, he said, not for taking him. I've offered. Offered what? To have him weeknights, to have him at the house. She said no. Why? And Charlene Voss looked away. She looked away toward the hall, and she did it fast, and it was the first thing she had done since he walked in that wasn't controlled. Mrs. Voss, that's not something I'm going to discuss. She said no to a 4-bedroom house and free childcare from a woman she lets visit every Thursday. Ethan leaned forward. Ma'am, that woman is drowning. She would not have said no unless there was a reason. Charlene. A man's voice from the doorway. Dale 60-something in a work shirt. That's enough now. Dale. I said that's enough. He needs to go. And behind Dale at the far end of the hallway, a door opened. A man came out. 40s, unshaven socks, holding a coffee cup, blinking against the light like a person who had been asleep at 9 in the morning on a Wednesday. He saw Ethan. He stopped. Nobody in that kitchen said one word. Ethan looked at the man in the hallway, and then he looked at Charlene Voss, and Charlene Voss looked at the table. That's Dwight, Ethan said. He moved home in February, Charlene said quietly. He signed away his rights. He did. And you filed in April. I did. Mrs. Voss. Ethan's voice came out lower than he meant it to. Is your son living in the house you're asking a judge to put that boy in? He's my son. Is he living in that house? He is trying, Charlene said, and she finally looked up, and her face was ruined. He is 91 days sober, and he goes to a meeting every morning at 6, and he has not asked me for $1 since March. And yes, He is in this house. Dale said. Charlene stopped talking. He asked me a direct question, Dale. He is going to take it to a lawyer. Then he'll take it to a lawyer. Charlene's chin came up. I have not told one lie in this whole business, and I am not going to start in my own kitchen. Ethan stood up. Did you tell your attorney? Charlene didn't answer. Did you tell the guardian ad litem? Does the home study have your son's name in it? The home study was done in March. That's not what I asked. The home study, Charlene said, was done in March. Ethan picked up his keys. I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm going to leave your house, and I'm not coming back. He kept his voice level. You're not a bad woman. I've met the bad ones this month, and you're not one of them. You are a grandmother who is terrified, and everything you said about that boy needing somebody awake at night is true, and I'm going to be thinking about it for a long time. But you attached a woman's body to a legal filing, he said. You printed out 4,000 strangers making fun of what she looks like, and you gave it to a judge and called it evidence. And while you were doing that, you left your own son out of the paperwork. And I don't think you did it because you're cruel. I think you did it because somebody handed you a way to win and you were too scared to look at it. Charlene Voss put her face in her hands. He was 2 steps from the door when she said, Mr. Walker. He turned. When that panel comes back on the 29th, she said. Somebody has got to be in that room with her. I know. She won't let anybody. I know that too. He called Sophia from the shoulder of the interstate at 11:15, and she picked up on the 5th ring, and her voice was so flat it frightened him. I told you 19 days. I know what you told me. Then why is Charlene Voss texting me that you were in her kitchen? Because I went to her kitchen. He put his hazards on. Sophia Dwight moved back into that house in February. He's been living there since before she filed. It's not in the home study. The line was silent. Did you hear me? I heard you. That's the case, Ethan said. That's the whole case right there in one sentence. Your attorney puts that in front of a judge on the 11th and it's over. I know it is. You know. Ethan, I've known since May. Her voice didn't change at all. I ran into him on the porch on a Thursday. He was carrying groceries in. He looked at me and he said, Hey, Soph, and he went inside. Ethan sat on the shoulder of the highway with his hand over his eyes. Why haven't you used it? Because it isn't a weapon, it's a man. Sophia let out a breath that shook. Because he's 91 days sober, and if I put his name in a filing, he loses the only house he's got. And then Charlene has to choose between her son and her grandson in a courtroom in front of strangers, and whichever one she picks, she's going to be 70 years old someday, sitting in that kitchen alone thinking about it. He gave up his rights. He was 22, and he was using, and his mother told him to sign it so the state wouldn't take the baby, Sophia said. You want to know the truth? Nicole liked him. She told me once he was the only person who ever asked her what a seizure felt like, instead of what to do about one. Ethan couldn't speak for a moment. So you're going to walk into that courtroom on the 11th, he said, and let them show a judge a video of 9 people laughing at you, and you're not going to say the one thing that would end it. That's what I'm going to do. Why? Because I've spent 9 years telling children that the way you get treated is not the way you treat, Sophia said. And Bree Ferguson is going to be 30 years old someday, and she's going to hear about how I won. And I would rather lose in a way I can explain to her than win in a way I can't. Ethan put his head against the steering wheel. That's the worst thing I've ever heard, he said. I know. Sophia, that's a child. That's Micah. I am aware of who it is. Then use it. Use it and hate yourself and be a person he grows up with. Don't. Her voice broke wide open for the first time in the whole call. Don't you do that. Do you have any idea how many times a night I do that to myself? I lie there and I say the sentence out loud in the dark. Dwight Voss has been residing at the property since February. I've said it 1,000 times. I know exactly what it does. I know exactly how fast it works. Then say it to a lawyer. I have 12 days to figure out who I am, she said. Let me have them. She hung up. He did not call her back. That was the hardest week of his life, and he did not call her back because she had asked him for something, and he had already taken a great deal from her without meaning to. Instead, he did the only thing he could think of that was not about him. He drove Bree's 22 letters to a copy shop and had them scanned. He called Kathleen Doyle and told her the truth in one long, unbroken paragraph, and Kathleen said, "Give me her attorney's email," and did not ask a single follow-up question. Dr. Prasad wrote 3 pages about the peer protocol and about who had first identified it, and she CC'd Rusk, and Rusk, who had typed a name into a laptop and made a face, wrote his own 2 pages and sent them at 11 at night from his personal account. Ms. Aguilar wrote a letter that was 4 sentences long and made Ethan sit down when he read it. Ryan Mitchell wrote a signed statement notarized at a bank on his lunch break that began, "I am the person who proposed the bet." Grace Walker, who had never met Sophia Bennett, wrote 1 paragraph about a granddaughter who had drawn empty rooms for 3 years. And on the 29th of July, at 9:40 in the morning, Ethan Walker sat in his truck in the parking lot of a pediatric neurology office on the north side of the city, 40 spaces away from a gray sedan, and did not get out and did not text and did not go in. He sat there for 2 hours and 40 minutes. At 12:20, she came out carrying Micah on her hip with a folder under her arm, and she stopped dead in the middle of the lot. She saw the truck. She stood there a long moment. Then she walked over, and Ethan rolled the window down, and neither of them said anything at all. "It's negative," Sophia said. Ethan put his hand over his mouth. "He doesn't have it. It's not the same gene. The febrile thing in March was a febrile thing." She was shaking so hard the folder was making noise. "I didn't tell you because I couldn't say it out loud. I couldn't make it real by saying it." "I know. How long have you been sitting here?" "Since 9:40. Sophia Bennett stood in a parking lot with her sister's son asleep on her shoulder and started to cry, and this time she didn't fight it. "You didn't come in," she said. "You didn't ask me to." "That's why," she said. "That's why, Ethan. That's the whole reason." Micah stirred, lifted his head, looked at the man in the truck with the frank appraisal of a 4-year-old and said, "Who dat?" "That's my friend," Sophia said. 12 days later, at 14 minutes past 2 in the morning on the 11th of August, 7 hours before the hearing, Ethan's phone lit up on the nightstand. He had it to his ear before the second ring. "Sophia." He could hear her breathing wrong. He could hear a small voice underneath it, making a sound he had never heard a child make. "Ethan." She had never once said his name like that. "Something's happening to him. He's on the floor and he won't stop, and I can't. I can't do it by myself. Please." Ethan was already moving. He had the phone against his shoulder and his jeans in his hand, and he was down the hallway before he had a plan. "Sophia. Sophia, listen to me. Is he breathing?" "I don't. I think so. He's—" "Look at his chest, right now. Tell me what his chest is doing." 3 seconds. "It's moving. It's moving. It's fast." "Good. That's good. Is anything in his mouth?" "No." "Don't put anything in it, not your fingers, nothing. Roll him onto his side. Just his side, don't hold him down. Let him do what he's doing." Ethan had Grace's door open with his elbow. "Grace, Grace, wake up. I have to go." "What's happened?" "Sophia's boy." Back into the phone. "Is he on his side?" "Yes." "What time did it start?" "What?" "Look at your clock and tell me what time it started. They're going to ask you, and you're going to want to know." 2:12. "I think 2:12. I don't know. I woke up because he—" Her voice went to pieces. "He was making a sound. That's what woke me. He was making a sound and I thought he was dreaming." "Okay. Are you on the phone with 911? "No, I called you." Ethan stopped with one boot on. "Sophia, hang up on me and call them right now." "Ethan, right now. They'll write it down." She was crying and trying to talk through it at the same time. "They write everything down, and there's a hearing in 7 hours, and they're going to write down that he had a seizure in my house." Ethan closed his eyes for exactly 1 second. "Sophia Bennett," he said, You call them, and you tell them everything, and you let them write down every word, because there is not one version of tomorrow that's worth anything if he isn't in it. Hang up. Call. I'm 19 minutes away, and I'm leaving now. He made it in 14. The ambulance had beaten him by 2 minutes, and the apartment door was propped open with a shoe. And Ethan came up the stairs, and Sophia was standing in the middle of her own living room, in a t-shirt and pajama pants, holding a folder against her chest with both arms. The folder. 2 in the morning, her nephew on a stretcher, and she'd picked up the court folder on the way past because 15 months had taught her to always have the paperwork. They said his heart rate's good, she said. They said his heart rate is good. Is that good? Is that a thing they say when it's bad? That's good. He didn't know me. She was shaking so hard her teeth were going. When it stopped, he opened his eyes and he looked right at me, and he didn't know who I was. That's normal after. That happens after. How do you know that? Because my wife had a seizure in a kitchen, and I read every single thing there was for about a year afterward, Ethan said. Look at me. That's the part that comes after, and it goes away, and it means it's over. Where are your keys? I don't. He found them on the counter. He found her shoes. He got a sweatshirt off the back of a chair and put it in her hands like she was 8 years old, and she stared at it and then put it on. At 2:51 in the morning, in the parking lot of the emergency room, with Micah already inside, and a woman at a desk asking for a name and a date of birth. Ethan took out his phone. Sophia caught his wrist. What are you doing? I'm calling Charlene Voss. Are you out of your mind? Probably. He didn't pull his arm away. Sophia, in 9 hours you're going to be standing in front of a judge, and there are exactly 2 ways this night goes into that room. Either their lawyer says the child had a medical emergency in her care and she concealed it, or Charlene Voss walks in here at 3 in the morning because you called her. She's suing me. She's his grandmother. Ethan's voice dropped. And you have let that woman sit on your rug every Thursday for 15 months while she was suing you, which is the single strangest and best thing I have ever heard about anybody, so don't tell me now that you can't make a phone call. Sophia let go of his wrist. She dialed it herself. Charlene Voss picked up on the second ring, which meant she had not been asleep either, and Sophia got out 4 words before her voice quit. Charlene, it's Micah. Where? St. Anne's. 40 minutes, Charlene said and hung up. She made it in 34, and she came through those doors in a house dress with a cardigan over it, and her hair not done, and no purse, which told Ethan more about her than anything she had said in her kitchen. She went straight past him. She took Sophia's face in both hands. Tell me. 2:12. About 90 seconds. Maybe 100. I couldn't. Sophia's voice was raw. He's got a fever of 103, and they think there's something in his ear and they're doing blood work. And they said the word febrile 11 times, and I don't know if they're saying it because it's true or because they think I'm going to fall apart. They're saying it because it's true, Charlene said. Nicole was 2.5. Same thing. 104 ear infection went stiff on my kitchen floor while I was making beans. Sophia stared at her. You never told me that. You never asked me anything, Charlene said. Neither of us ever asked each other one single thing in 15 months. At 4:15, a resident came out and said the words ear infection, and the words febrile seizure, and the words very common, and the words no indication of an underlying seizure disorder. And Sophia Bennett sat down on the floor of an emergency room hallway with her back against the wall because her legs simply stopped. Charlene sat down next to her, which took her a while, and which she did anyway. Hearing's at 9:30, Sophia said. I know what time it is. I'm not going to be any good. Nobody's any good at those. They sat there. Charlene. I'm going to say something, and then I'd like us to never talk about it again. Sophia was looking at the opposite wall. I've known about Dwight since May. Charlene didn't move. I saw him on your porch with the groceries. He said, "Hey, Soph," and he went inside. Sophia swallowed. I've had it for 3 months. My attorney doesn't know. Nobody knows. And I want you to hear me say out loud that I'm not going to use it, and I'm not telling you that, so you'll owe me. I'm telling you because you're going to sit in that courtroom this morning waiting for it, and I don't want you sitting there scared on top of everything else." The hallway was very quiet. "Why?" Charlene said. "Because there's a 14-year-old girl named Bree who thinks I'm the person who taught her how to be treated," Sophia said. "And because that man is somebody's son. And because if I win it that way, then on some Thursday 5 years from now, Micah is going to ask me why his grandmother stopped coming, and I would have to answer him." Charlene Voss put her hands over her face and made a sound that was not crying exactly, but was on the way there. At 6:05 in the morning, she stood up and said, "I need to make a phone call," and walked out through the automatic doors into the parking lot. She was out there 22 minutes. When she came back in, she said, "I've fired Bernard Hutchins." Sophia looked up. "What?" "My attorney. As of 6:20 this morning, I no longer have one." Charlene's chin was set. "I told him about my son. He said, and I want to be accurate, he said, 'Charlene, that is not information the court requires at this stage.' And I said, 'At what stage does it require it?' And he started talking about strategy, and I hung up on him." "Charlene." He printed out those comments. Charlene's voice went to gravel. "I want you to know I never read them. He put that exhibit in front of me, and I said, 'What is it?' And he said it goes to instability, and I signed it without reading one line because I was scared, and because a man in a suit told me it would work." She looked down at Sophia. "That's what I've got to live with. Not that I fought you. That I let somebody hand me a way to win, and I didn't look at it." Ethan, standing 10 feet away with 2 cups of terrible coffee he'd been holding for 6 minutes, did not move a muscle. The hearing started at 9:41, 11 minutes late. Sophia Bennett walked in wearing the same green dress from the restaurant, because it was the only formal thing she owned that was clean, and she had been awake for 27 hours, and she was carrying a 4-year-old's hospital discharge paperwork in a plastic bag. Ethan sat in the back. He had told her he would sit in the back and not come any closer, and he did exactly that. Bree Ferguson's mother had driven 11 kids and 4 parents down there in 2 minivans, and they filled 2 rows, and the bailiff had to ask them twice to put their phones away. Judge Marilyn Okwosa had been on the bench 19 years and had a face like a closed door. She started by saying that she had before her a petition for permanent guardianship filed by Charlene and Dale Voss, and she noted for the record that petitioners appeared without counsel and asked whether they understood their right to be represented. Charlene stood up. "We do, Your Honor. Mrs. Voss, I'm going to give you an opportunity to continue this matter to a later date so you can retain new counsel." "I don't want one, Your Honor." "Ma'am, I would strongly advise." "Your Honor, I'd like to withdraw the petition." The room made a sound. Judge Okwosa took off her glasses. "Mrs. Voss, do you understand what you're telling me?" "I do." "You've been litigating this matter since April." "Yes, ma'am." "And you're withdrawing today, with no counsel present, 9 minutes into the hearing." "Yes, ma'am." The judge looked at her for a long moment. "I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think carefully before you answer it, because I have seen a great many people withdraw petitions under pressure, and if anyone has threatened you or coerced you in any way, this is the moment to tell me, and I will protect you." "Nobody's threatened me," Charlene said. "The opposite, Your Honor. That's the trouble." "Explain that." Charlene put both hands on the table in front of her. "My son Dwight has been living in my home since February," she said. "That's not in my home study. My attorney knew and told me it wasn't required at this stage, and I let him tell me that because I wanted to hear it." Her voice was steady and awful. "He's 91 days sober as of April, and he's 190-something now. I've lost count. I love him. But I stood up in front of the state and asked for a 4-year-old to be placed in a house, and I did not tell them everybody who sleeps in it, and that's the truth of it. And I'd rather say it out loud than have it come out of somebody else's mouth." You could hear the court reporter's keys. "And Miss Bennett has known since May," Charlene said. The judge's eyes moved. "Miss Bennett." Sophia stood up. "Yes, Your Honor." "Is that accurate? You've had this information since May?" Yes, Your Honor. And you didn't raise it? No, Your Honor. Why not? Sophia was quiet for a second, and Ethan, 40 feet back, watched her hands. Because it would have worked, she said. Judge Okwosa sat back in her chair. Miss Bennett, I've been doing this 19 years. That's a new answer. Your Honor, I'm a counselor. I work with kids who get taken apart by other kids. Sophia's voice was shaking and she kept going anyway. And what I tell them every week is that the way somebody treats you is not permission. It's not a permission slip to become that. And I have said it to a girl named Bree Ferguson probably 100 times, and she is sitting in the third row right now, and I could not think of one way to say that sentence to her again, if I'd won this by putting Dwight Voss's name in a filing. The judge looked at the third row. Bree Ferguson sat up very straight and did not look away. There's also this, Judge Okwosa said, and picked up a document. Exhibit C, which I have now read twice, and which I want counsel of record, if there ever is any again in this matter, to understand, I found deeply improper. 51 seconds of video and 40 pages of anonymous internet commentary regarding this woman's body submitted to me as evidence of a child's welfare. She set it down like it was wet. Mrs. Voss, did you draft this exhibit? No, ma'am, but I signed it. Do you stand behind it? No, ma'am. Then say what you'd like said, and I'll put it on the record. Charlene turned around. She turned around in a courtroom in front of 30 people, and she looked at Sophia Bennett. I have sat on your floor every Thursday for 15 months, she said, and I watched you raise my grandson, and then I let a lawyer tell a judge you weren't fit because of the size of you. And I knew better. That's the part. I knew better the whole time. She stopped and got herself back. Your Honor, I'd like the record to say that Micah Voss is where his mother would have put him. Judge Okwosa granted the withdrawal at 10:04 in the morning, dismissed the petition, struck Exhibit C from the record in its entirety, and then, over the objection of no one, ordered on her own motion that the matter of permanent guardianship be scheduled for a consent hearing in 30 days, and told Sophia Bennett to bring her attorney and her paperwork and her nephew. Then she said, Miss Bennett, one more thing, and this is not on the record. The reporter lifted her hands. There are 11 children in my courtroom on a Tuesday morning in August, the judge said. In 19 years, I have never seen that. Whatever it is you do, keep doing it. The consent hearing was on the 10th of September, and it took 11 minutes. Permanent guardianship. Sophia Bennett. Grandparent visitation. Charlene and Dale Voss every Thursday 4 to 7 by agreement of the parties, which made the judge's mouth twitch, because it was already what had been happening for 17 months. Ryan Mitchell's notarized statement never got read into anything. It sat in a folder in Sophia's apartment. She told him she was keeping it, and when he asked why, she said, Because you wrote it when you thought it would cost you something. That's the only kind that counts. He said, It still should cost me something. It did, she said. You're just going to be paying it in a currency nobody claps for. Madison Cole put out a 2-minute video on the 22nd of August with soft lighting and a lot of the word growth. The comments did not go the way she expected. She deleted it in 4 days. Ethan never spoke to her again and was surprised when he examined it to find he felt nothing about her at all. Not hatred, not vindication. Just the flat quiet nothing of a door that had closed on its own. Ryan asked him about it once on a Sunday in October, standing at a grill. You don't ever want to say anything to her. No. Not one thing. Ryan, I've got a kid who needs 100% of me, and a woman who needs 0% of me, and gets some anyway. Ethan turned to Berger. I'm not spending any of it on her. Which brings it to October 1st, which was the day the school had circled in Kathleen Doyle's office back in June. The 60-day peer protocol had run 12 weeks. Twice a week, 90 minutes. Sophia and Ms. Aguilar, and a 9-year-old girl named Nadia Okafor, who took the whole thing so seriously that she made her mother buy her a clipboard. They had gone from writing to writing in the same room as an adult, to Lily reading her own written words aloud in an empty classroom with only Nadia present, and then with the door open, and then with Ms. Aguilar in the hallway. On the 12th of September, Lily Walker had said the word yes out loud to a teacher for the first time in 3 years and 4 months, and Ethan had heard about it in a phone call at 2 in the afternoon and had to pull his truck over. On the 1st of October, there was a meeting in the same conference room with the same 4 people. Rusk had a laptop again. He did not open it. "So," Kathleen Doyle said. "Placement." "Kathleen," Ethan said. "I'm enjoying myself, let me have it." She smiled. "Placement is general education, 4th grade with continued consultation, and a fade schedule through the spring. Mr. Walker, sit down before you fall down." Dr. Prasad said, "I want something in the notes." "Go ahead." In June, this file described a child with a poor prognosis and no communicative partner. Prasad looked up. "The partner was in the room the whole time. She was in the same building 4 feet away for 2 years. I signed reports that said otherwise. I'd like that written down because if I don't write it down, I'll do it again." Nobody said anything for a moment. "Put it in," Kathleen said. Ethan drove home and got out of the truck, and Lily was on the porch. And he did not make a thing out of it because Sophia had told him 18 times not to make a thing out of it. "Hey, Bug." And his daughter said out loud in a voice like a rusty hinge and the most beautiful sound in the history of the world, "Hey." Ethan Walker sat down on his own steps. "Yeah," he said. "Hey." It wasn't a switch. Nobody should ever say it was a switch. There were bad weeks after that, and there was a Thanksgiving where she didn't speak for 4 days, and there is a version of Lily Walker at 30 years old who still goes quiet when a room gets loud. But she talked to Micah Voss the way a faucet runs. That was the thing nobody predicted. The first person Lily spoke to freely all day without effort was a 4-year-old boy who had eaten cereal off a bedroom floor for 18 hours, because he didn't want anything from her, and he didn't know she was supposed to be broken. And he asked her approximately 200 questions a day about dinosaurs. Sophia watched it happen on a Saturday in November and said quietly, "Look at that." "I see it. They're doing each other's therapy," she said. "We're not doing anything. We're just driving." Sophia was reinstated on the 19th of August after 206 letters arrived at Ridgeline Behavioral, of which Bree Ferguson had personally organized 140. Her supervisor, who had used the word optics, apologized in a way that Sophia described afterward as sincere and about 4% adequate. In February, she took a program director job at a nonprofit downtown and built the thing she'd been describing to teenagers for 9 years without having anywhere to put it. It ran on Tuesday nights. It was for kids who got it bad. 22 the first month, 90 by June. Bree Ferguson volunteered there at 16 and worked there at 22. Ethan and Sophia did not fall in love in a restaurant. Ethan wanted that understood. He said it out loud once at a table full of people who thought they knew the story. They fell in love over 11 months of the most boring things imaginable. Grocery runs, 2 kids and 1 bathroom, a carburetor. The Thursday afternoons that Ethan started attending after Charlene asked him to, which he could not explain to anybody. Sophia falling asleep at 9:40 on a couch with a legal pad on her chest. Micah's first day of pre-K when he cried and Sophia didn't, and then she got to the car and did. He proposed on the 14th of March in the used bookstore on Wabash, in the aisle where they'd had their third real conversation, and he did not make a speech because she'd told him once in a parking lot that she was tired of being a lesson. He said, "I've thought about this for a year and here's all I've got. I'm not choosing you because of one night. Anybody can be decent for one night. I want to be the man who picks you on an ordinary Tuesday when nobody's watching and there's nothing in it for me." Sophia said, "Ask me the actual question, Ethan." He laughed and asked it. She said yes. They got married in a church basement in October because the church was Charlene's and the basement was free, and Dale Voss ran the sound system badly, and Dwight Voss, 2 years and change sober, sat in the 4th row and cried through the whole thing and did not touch a drop at the reception. Ryan Mitchell was not the best man. He was not asked to be, and he never once acted like he should have been, and Ethan considered that the most respectable thing he'd ever done. He drove the van. He set up chairs. He was the first one there and the last one out. Lily Walker, 11, read a poem out loud in front of 90 people with a microphone. She got through it in a voice that shook the whole way, and she did not stop once. And when she finished, the loudest person in that basement was a 5-year-old boy standing on a folding chair yelling her name. They went back to Bellini's once. Just once. Ethan's idea, and he admitted later, it was a bad one. Same table, 9 chairs. Some of the same people, because in a town that size you can't help it. And 2 of them came over and got sentimental about it, and one of them said the words that night changed all of us. And Sophia was gracious, because she is always gracious, and in the car afterward, she looked out the window and said, "I'm never doing that again." I know. I'm sorry. It's not them. She shook her head. It's that they need it to have been a beautiful night. They need it to be the night I got rescued, because that's the only way they get to be part of it. What was it? It was the worst night of my life, Sophia said. And then it was over, and I went to work on Monday. That's the part Ethan Walker tells people now when they ask, and they always ask. They ask because they saw 51 seconds of it. They want the version where a man says a beautiful thing, and a woman is saved by it because that version is short, and it fits on a phone, and it lets everybody off. Here's the whole of it. 9 people made a bet about whether a woman was worth being seen with. She had already counted the chairs, and she sat down anyway. She paid her own check in exact change she'd folded before she left the house. She got put on leave, put in a legal filing, put on the internet, and she still walked into a building on Monday full of teenagers because they were her kids. She sat on a hospital floor at 4 in the morning and gave away the one weapon she had to a woman who was suing her on purpose. Nobody rescued Sophia Bennett. She was never the thing that needed fixing in that restaurant. The bet was never about whether Ethan Walker would stay. It was about what everybody at that table already believed, and the only thing that broke that night was their certainty. They set up a blind date to prove a woman like her would never be chosen. She raised her sister's son. Buried, her sister built a program that has served 4,000 children, and married a man who has never once in 11 years described her as the woman he saw past. He describes her as the person he was lucky enough to be sat next to. And that is the whole story, and it is finished, and every single word of it is true.